let's do it.
Ah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to, what is this? Miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous, yeah.
Okay, so I'm Rachel Wang. I'm from Wisconsin. My BA, my bachelor's S1 is in linguistics and psychology, and my master's S2, right? That's S2, right? Master's is in applied linguistics, and then I've taught high school in Japan, adults in New York City, and university students in China and Indonesia. And currently, I'm in Washington, D.C. in the US, working as a program coordinator. And Alfine here is going to ask me some questions today.
Yeah. So, yeah, welcome back to Miscellaneous. This is our second episode where we have a Native American speaker. Previously, we had Akram Sibli from Buffalo. Now we have Rachel from Washington, D.C. This is a great opportunity. This is the kind of opportunity that we always looking forward to, because we always encourage ourselves to reach broader audience. So hopefully by bringing you the Americans here, so you can feel the American vibes through all of our programs.
And yes, the American vibes through online.
The American vibe is really strong here. So we bring the America to you. We bring the state to you. So even if you cannot go to the state, we provide you the vibes. We provide you how it feels like to be there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alfine, for having me.
I know. We thank you also to be able to be attending here, because we know we have a tight schedule, but you still made it to come here and then have this session with us. Okay, so let's start with the first questions. We want to know your background. So how would you like to share with us your childhood story, your family background, and then the environment you grew up with, and also how it eventually shaped who you are today?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, which is in the middle of the US. It's near Chicago. And so my mom is from Taiwan, my dad is from China, and my grandma, my dad's mom, is from Japan, and I'm from Wisconsin. So it was a very multicultural background. At home, my parents spoke Mandarin growing up, but I would speak in English because, to be honest, it was difficult to be different than the other kids. And so I didn't really appreciate it as much then. But I did take Chinese classes in college to help improve my Chinese. And I think that was part of the reason I taught in Japan and in China. And through those experiences, I was able to learn more about my heritage and about my culture there. But I did grow up in Madison, Wisconsin. And so that's where I'm from, you know? And I always was interested in learning languages, and I read a lot of books growing up. So I grew up with Harry Potter, that era. And so I traveled the world through books. You know, I got to visit Hogwarts, I got to visit other places. So for me, I always wanted to travel and learn languages. And so that's kind of how I began, studying linguistics and becoming interested in teaching.
Since you have multicultural background, we know the word intersectionality, right? Does your intersectionality become an obstacle for you, or it even actually strengthens you as a person, as a human being? Does it bother you to blend or to engage with the society, or you didn't actually face any difficulties to fit in?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think of it as both a burden and a privilege. Some ways that it was a burden was as someone who looks Asian. When I taught in Asian countries, people don't realize that I'm American. When I was in China one time, another foreigner was asking everyone at the restaurant, like, oh, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you from? And then he skipped me because he thought I'm from China. And I was like, hello, I'm from Wisconsin, actually. But because there's a lot of assumption about that. And also, you know, we've grown up in a very like a world post-colonialism, you know, Westerners are in power, you know, Indonesia has experienced that as well, you know, whiteness is very valued, right? So sometimes it can be harder to be taken seriously as a woman of color. But I think that there's also a lot of community and being part of the Asian American community in America, in the US. And also because I have very strong connection to my Asian heritage, it was easier to make connections with people when I was living in Japan, in China, in Indonesia. I think it's easier to connect because especially like with my students, because my face is more familiar and I understand the culture a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
So it's both a burden and a privilege.
So this is something that we shared with Akram on the previous episode, because this is the reason why at the end of the day, it is not that easy to see everyone engaged. We eventually connect with our people, not with the majority, because we're seeking for belonging. Do you agree with that, based on your experience?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Everyone is looking for belonging, and that's something that, you know, I was interested in learning more about my heritage, living in Asian countries and teaching there. I got to learn a lot about Japanese, Chinese, Indonesian culture. And I think that that's important to me, that students feel like English belongs to them too. Like, even though you're a learner, but you're using English, so it belongs to you. It's not like English only belongs to Westerners or white people or something like that. Because you're using English, it belongs to you as well. So I hope students or whoever is watching this, when you're using English, you feel like you belong to the English community.
At least you share the same language, although with a different level.
Yeah, that's okay. But there's connection even if someone says hello to me, right? With a smile. Or, you know, when I walk around Indonesia and I say like, selamat pagi or whatever, right? At least there's already connection, even though it's beginner level.
Yeah. I see. Even if I reflect on myself, I currently feel like I have the connection with the Japanese people since I'm working for the company and I start learning Japanese currently. Yeah. Can you read my Japanese? At least I can do a simple Chiko Shokai.
Oh, very good. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think the language is what connects us, and I think through language we can find belonging. And so it's so great that you're using language to connect with Japan as well.
Yeah. Because I think it's easier if I can speak the language instead of waiting for them to be able to speak English, because we know the barrier. Yeah, they have the different.
Yeah, you want to meet halfway, right? Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. And you also mentioned why you were interested in being an English teacher as well, and I think that answers the question. Is there any other reasons?
Yeah, I can add. So I wanted to live abroad in other countries, and I love languages, so it worked out very well. I was also interested in working with other people, so I like helping students. And I also became very interested in how our brains learn language, because I think it's very fascinating. Like how, and you're working with young kids, right? Like, how do kids pick up language? It's so interesting, right? And then when I was in my first teaching job in Japan, I found that I really liked the creativity. You can plan lessons, you can think of activities for students, and it can be really fun, like problem solving and how to manage the classroom and keep everyone active and keep it interesting. I really like that.
Okay. If you could choose, would you rather teach the kids or the adults, or they are all the same for you?
So far, I feel like I don't have as much patience as you to teach kids. And also, I found that I really like working with university level students, because I think it's a very interesting age. You know, students for the first time are being independent from their families and trying to figure out who they are. And I really like working with that age of students, you know, figuring out their identity, and then they're also making friends with everyone on campus. I think it's just a great age, and I love working with university students and adults more. Yeah.
Sometimes they will come to you and then asking for some advice. I mean, out of the English, right? Because as you know, they grew up and then starting to be independent, and asking for advice is something that you will see if you deal with university students.
Yeah, it's great. I love sharing my experiences like now, you know, it's great.
So if you were not a teacher, then what would you be?
I think when I was young, I wanted to be a librarian because I really loved books. And we were fortunate to have a library in the school that had a lot of fun books. So even during recess or whatever, I really enjoyed going to the library because it was a fun place. Like the librarian would read us picture books when we were younger, and then there was just like so many fun things to read. So I just really liked be in that atmosphere. And also libraries are kind of quiet, but I liked that you can interact with students and like recommend books. So I actually, you know, we'll talk about that later, but I think that kind of led into the book project, because I love books, and I really think it's a great way to explore and learn about other cultures.
And I think this is the right time to clarify. Okay, so based on my senior, our program coordinator, Mr. Heru, he told me that the concept of American Corner is the same as the library in the US. So the library in the US is not only the place for you to read books, but it also a co-working space. Then they also provide you not only with books, but also magazine and also even board games. So it is like the place where you can spend your time learning and discussing and socializing with the people. Is that true?
Yeah.
It's not that.
Yeah. So yeah, libraries also put on events for like kids, for teenagers, for adults, like book clubs. So it's a place to gather for community. And this might be before your time. I don't know if you remember like CDs and things, but you used to be able to go to the library and actually borrow a set of CDs for computer games. So I remember like Windows 95 CD-ROM, and you put it in the computer, and then you can play a game. It's like it's like educational, but it's like fun, or it's like problem solving, some adventure game, and it's like clicking, not like video games, super intense, but like clicking, like go here, go here, go here. So I remember doing that a lot, and it was really fun. So, yeah,
That is
I really
true.
like going to the library. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember board games at my library, but there probably were. And I do know they had like craft nights or afternoons for kids and also for adults, like crafts, you know, like knitting or origami or, you know, something like that. So yeah, for me, libraries are a fun place. I know that in Asian countries, libraries are like a serious place. right?
Can agree more. Yeah.
Yes. So I wish there was more like fun community spaces, and I think libraries for me were that. Yeah.
Yeah. When it comes to Indonesia, we have different perception towards library, but luckily today people are more aware of the needs of having the reading habit, and then the needs of getting people together in one place and then learn something. So despite the library, out of the library, we also have TBM. If you ever know TBM, Taman Baca Masyarakat. So this is the place where people can borrow books, they can read the book collection there, and then also sometimes in a weekly basis or even on a daily basis, we can create activities for the visitors there. So not only to read, but also to learn something new. Maybe we cook together, maybe we play
Oh, that's so
drama.
fun. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Uh,
That's great.
So
I'm
we're
so
not
glad
only
you have that.
counting on the library, the big library in the city, but also with the existence of TBM, it helps the marginalized community. It helps the smaller community to access books and to be able to get something new, to learn something new, and to socialize, connect with people.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank
Yeah.
you for your work with that.
And did you find it when you were in Indonesia with
I think
TBM?
we were no, I haven't heard of Tibam actually. So in the future, if I'm able to visit Indonesia again, I will try to visit.
Yeah, and it's actually a massive movement. They are organized, and then uh, the government supports this community, and I'm just so happy because I also when I was in college, I was also the volunteers for TBM, and the value that they shared, and the missions that they brought for the visitors there, it just touched my heart, and that's why the happiest time when I was in college is to visit TPM and then learn with the kids there, and then to see them learn new things, and then to be able to share my experience with them, help them grow. And it's just kind of sad when I had to leave Malang to work here, because I always cherish the memories that I share with the kids in TBM. So yeah, I think that's all.
That's great. I'm so glad you have that experience.
Okay. Okay. But back to the topic. So, how did you eventually become an English fellow? Was it coincidence, or you really did plan to be part of English language fellows?
Yeah, so during my graduate program, I was thinking about going abroad again because I had been in Japan, China, and then I came back to New York City for my master's. And then I was interested in going to another country to learn about the culture and the language. And I heard about this English language fellow program from a friend in the graduate school, so another classmate. He shared the information with me and I looked at it. So I applied in my last year of my program in the fall, and the application process is actually takes a few months. So I applied, I had an interview in the spring, and actually they just matched me with a project in Indonesia. And so I told them I would go to any country as long as it's a new country, and they just picked Indonesia. So that's actually how I ended up in Indonesia.
Okay, so you didn't pick Indonesia. You didn't choose Indonesia. You just went
No,
to
the
whatever.
only thing I knew about Indonesia was in high school in my world history class. I learned that Indonesia is the largest Muslim majority country in the world. And so that was all I knew about Indonesia, actually. So then, so yeah, you were gonna ask me about if I knew anything about Indonesia. That's
Yeah.
it. And then I Googled Manado, right? And then I saw Manado is famous for having the most churches in Indonesia and for scuba diving. And so my goal was to learn scuba diving, but I had to learn how to swim first because I didn't really know how to swim very well. And you have to pass a swim test. to get your certificate for diving, right? So, but so the first day I went to the pool in the US and I could only, like, I practiced floating, right? And then I practiced like swimming halfway. And then, but you have to go back and forth like maybe 4 times or 8 times. I don't remember. Anyway, so it's just like first day is like floating, second day is like half, and then the next day is like try to go a little bit more, and then, you know, just gradually, right? So after a few weeks, and then I took the classes for the certificate, and then in Manado, I was able to go scuba diving. So without Indonesia, I don't think I would know how to swim or dive. So I'm really grateful to have this opportunity.
So your preparation is beyond the program, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Indonesia was life-changing, this experience, like everything, professionally, personally. I learned so much and I grew so much. It was amazing.
What year did you come to Indonesia? 2018, is that right?
Yeah, originally 2018 until March 2020. Yeah. And then I was doing a virtual project until 2021.
Yeah. You were still involved in a project even after the English language fellow program.
Yeah, luckily I was able to transition to a virtual project. So when I was in Manado, I was working with Universitas Samratulangi. And then I also had the opportunity to work with UNESA in Surabaya. So that was great too, because I learned about different parts of Indonesia. You know, I love that Indonesia is so diverse, right? I keep trying to tell my friends in the US, like, you don't understand. Indonesia has like 17,000 islands. It's like so wide. There's like 3 time zones. And there's so many ethno-linguistic groups, you know, so yeah, I really appreciated my time in Indonesia.
Yeah, and
Both
Indonesia
in
is more
person
than
and virtually.
and Indonesia is more than Bali, yeah.
Yes,
Most of
people don't know anything about Indonesia, but I always tell people you gotta go visit because it's just so beautiful on land, underwater. It's amazing.
Okay. And being an English language fellow in Manado, did you find yourself well prepared, or do you have to eventually adjust here and there? Do you have to adjust your plan after experiencing the real situation in Manado when you came to Manado eventually?
Yeah, I think everyone who has moved to a new city or moved to a new country or even just a teacher, you have to adjust to the situation, right? And I think it's easier without expectations. So, you know, I came in not expecting much, but actually I like grew so much because of the challenges. So my mantra, my saying was like, challenges are opportunities for growth, right? So I had a lot of opportunities for growth. And that's why I say Indonesia was so life-changing, because I grew so much. Like professionally, for example, I learned to teach without PowerPoint. I learned how to teach class sizes of 50 students or even 70 students. Before that, I'd only taught like 30 or 40 at the most. And I also learned how to live with nature. Like I really, before Indonesia, I wasn't an outdoors person, right? But because Indonesia nature is very like in your face, it's present everywhere. I really learned to enjoy it. And so that really was a big change for me too. And, you know, I learned how to live and teach in a very hot weather with no air conditioning or fans. But I found that I was able to adapt. And so that gave me confidence when I moved back to Wisconsin in the pandemic very suddenly, right? And I had confidence that, well, I adjusted to living on the equator, and now I can adjust to very cold weather. So it was going from like island to like snow and like Antarctic weather a little bit.
Very drastic
But
changes.
Yeah, but because of Indonesia, I learned how to embrace the difficulties, you know, the challenges. And when I came back to Wisconsin, it was the same. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna freeze because even like rainy season in Indonesia was cold for me. So then when I came back and there's snow, like this much snow, and then I was like, okay, this is an opportunity to learn how to enjoy snow. So I learned how to ice skate and I took some skiing lessons because of my experience in Indonesia. I was like, well, I can appreciate it. I can learn how to scuba dive. So now let me just apply the same thinking to Wisconsin.
Ah, yeah, I love that mantra. So by having that kind of mindset, every time you
Yeah.
every time you find difficulty or challenge, you just see it as the chance to grow better.
Yeah, definitely. I it's a growth mindset thing, and so I have always told my students challenges are opportunities for growth. So when you see a challenge, exactly as you said, well, this is an opportunity to grow. How can I grow instead of like this is the worst and I hate it, but actually that's why I'm so different because of Indonesia and I appreciate that so much.
Mm. Okay, so was it something or the value that you find would be applicable in the US? The value that you finally could carry from Indonesia that you find applicable when you came back to the US?
Yeah, definitely the challenges are opportunities for growth. As I said, I use that to adapt to Wisconsin cold weather. And I also feel like I became a little bit more, well, just like everything will be okay. Like it'll turn out okay. Like even though during the pandemic, I suddenly didn't have. I was teaching in Indonesia, and suddenly I didn't have that job anymore, and I didn't really know what's going to happen next. But I feel like being able to be flexible and adapt to all the situations in Indonesia, it helped me during the pandemic be like, well, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I think it'll be okay and it'll work out. So having a little bit of that kind of mindset and like, yeah, this is a challenge. Also, like suddenly online learning, right?
Yes.
I never taught online before the pandemic.
Uh,
But I was like, this is a challenge. So this is an opportunity to grow. How can I grow as a virtual teacher? What can I do? Like, it's kind of, it makes it more interesting to be like, what can I learn from this experience? So now I learned how to use Prezi Video, for example, to show you these pictures. This is something new. And so I'm, in that way, I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn how to teach online, learn how to use Zoom. I don't know how to use Zoom before, right? No one knows, but now we all do.
yeah, who would have thought, right? Even the activities that you offered to us in Camp Epic, I think, if I remember, it was all on-site based, on-site custom activities. We never imagined that these online-based activities will come this soon.
Yeah, I remember the lights went out for like 5 minutes and we were like, we can't do anything. No! Right?
Yeah, so I can assume that it didn't take you a long time to adapt to life in Manado because being adaptable is your middle name. So Rachel, adaptable. Wow. Yeah.
I think all teachers, teachers have to adapt all the time to students. And then when you move to a new country, you have to adapt. Yeah. Yeah. So for me, for adapting to life in Manado and in Indonesia, I feel like it took at least 6 months to like several months at first. It's always difficult when you move to a new place. I think you moved for college, right? For university to a new place. And so, making new friends, finding your, places to get your groceries, to eat, everything it's new, and it can be kind of a challenge also, right? So I think it took a bit, but I think by the end of the first year, I felt very comfortable. And when I came back for my second year, I was really excited. I feel like I had a lot of culture shock when I left Indonesia and visited other countries. And I was like, why don't you do it like they do in Indonesia?
Yeah.
So then I was happy to come back to Indonesia for the second year. So yeah.
Now, I do agree that moving to a new place always takes time to adapt, right? Did you also feel lonely because you leave all the people, you leave your people?
Yeah, of course. Whenever you move to a new city, like, didn't you feel lonely moving to a new city by yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because we're in a pandemic. We are limited to meet people, and it's not that easy to build new connections and to find to meet with new people, to connect with them. It's getting harder.
And also I think the new thing that you understand now as an adult, because you don't have classes, you don't have as much opportunities to meet people. So you have to create those opportunities for yourself. And so that's even harder when you don't really speak the language. So, many times living abroad, sometimes I'm limited to making friends with people who can speak English, or Indonesians who are willing to, they were very kind and showed me how to do things, even though we can't really communicate that well. And a lot of times I'm just like, yeah, sure. But I don't really understand. But it was really nice that they invited me to join them. So I always encourage people, like, when you see someone and they don't really, they're kind of like hanging around, they don't know what to do, please invite them, because I was so grateful for Indonesians who, they didn't really speak English, but they always invited me. And that was very kind of them.
Okay. And in terms of teaching, what's the difference between you teaching in the US and Indonesia, or between your previous experience teaching in Japan and then teaching students in Indonesia? What's the difference?
So I've only taught in the US during my graduate school, so not that much experience. So during my graduate school, the practicum, the practice teaching, was in a community language program. It was very small classes because the adults paid to take to learn English. So one big difference is the class size. So I only had, because the adults were paying for these classes and there were more teachers, so the classes were actually only 15 people when I was teaching in the US. But of course, there's many different class sizes. When I was in school, as a high schooler, my classes were like 30 students or 25 maybe. And when I was in university, I was in some classes that were like 200 students, the big lectures. So even in the US, there's a lot of difference for class sizes. But for me, my experience was that I taught like classes of 15 in the US, and then in Japan, I had classes of 40 and classes of 30 in China. And so I felt like I had experience with 30, 40 students. Those are large classes to me. But when I came to Indonesia, I had some classes with 50 students and even one class with 70 students. So that was a new challenge for me. Yeah, adapting and making it interesting for everyone. Yeah, have you taught that many students before?
Not yet. And I cannot imagine managing those many people in the class.
It's a lot. Yeah. And so I did a lot of like pair work, group work, and then even putting in 4 corners, like different stations. And then after maybe 10, 15 minutes, and they rotate to the next station. So they have like different activities, but they just rotate,
Yeah, I love that 4 station. Yeah, it helps a lot when you have big size class.
Yeah. And maybe it's and it keeps people moving, right? You have to be active. So I wonder if it would work for young kids. What do you think?
As long as the instruction is clear, I'm sure it will work. Yeah, but again, kids are easily distracted, so you need to be more patient, and you need to be able to guide them through the every step of the lessons. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's the biggest challenge of dealing with
yeah.
kids. Yeah.
That's such a key thing for teachers to be able to have clear instructions. And honestly, that's something that I still am working on getting better at, because instructions, to be clear and give clear instructions and an example, it can be really difficult. So that's something I have to practice a lot.
Yeah, sure. And okay, which level did you teach? Did you also teach at senior high school, or you only teach on university back then in Manado?
In Manado, it was only university.
University. Uh, was it helpful? Because let's assume that university level they also have better basic English.
Yeah, I mean, there was a big range of skills, but the nice thing about like working in pairs or in groups is that people can help each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if there's some confusion, they can help and explain.
Okay. Okay then. And then let's talk about your agenda there. Yeah.
Yes, let's
Nice.
talk about extensive reading.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to show my picture. This is my picture of, so you can see how many students, but this actually ties into the next question. So yes, let's talk about extensive reading.
Did you also meet ETA back then in Manado? English assistant?
Yeah, there was one ETA my first year.
Were they helpful?
Yeah, it was nice to have someone in the city. You know, she told me about some cool spots to visit and things like that. So it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, I met some of them in Malang, and really looking forward to be able to connect with them again. We're still working on it to connect with them. Hopefully, on the next session, we're going to have ETA here.
Oh, that would be so fun.
Because the next month we're going to have the alumni of YES program, and I'm sure we can complete this puzzle by having ETA here. Hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay, let's talk about extensive reading. Okay, to give a little bit of insight, let's start with what is extensive reading and why you actually came up with that idea of promoting extensive reading in Indonesia.
Yeah, so extensive reading is basically just reading a lot, reading for fun, not for school, reading for fun. And when you read for fun, you read a lot. Like I read Harry Potter and then I finish all of Harry Potter and then I read the next Harry Potter and there's 7 books, right? And so that's extensive reading, reading for fun. And we use the word extensive because it's like a lot, right? And so the idea for promoting extensive reading came from my RELO, Regional English Language Officer, who supervises the English Language Fellow Program in Indonesia. And he was passionate about extensive reading. And the background is that, as we talked about, in Indonesia, there's not as many opportunities for reading to be fun because it's mostly associated with like studying, right? Like, so we wanted to change reading equals studying. No, reading equals fun, right? Yeah, so we wanted to make it fun. So he shared with us this comic book. Here's a picture. It's about a superhero. It's a trilingual, so it's in Bahasa Bali, Bahasa Indonesia, and in English. So it's a comic book. You know, reading comic books is fun. Reading comic books is still reading. Some people think it's not reading because reading is studying, but no, anything where you're reading words, this is reading too. Comic books, graphic novels. Yes. So I was inspired when I saw this book because I thought I can create a project where my students create their own picture books. And in Manado, we usually use Bahasa Manado, right? So I was like, let's have my students make books and in groups, and then each book will have Bahasa Manado, Bahasa Indonesia, and English, and incorporate some aspect about Manado culture because it's very interesting. I think it's a unique area in Indonesia, and so I was really interested. My students included some cultural traditions.
Really interesting. How did you cope with this? Because it's more than one language. It even has three languages in one book. How did you make sure that they share the same meaning? How do you clarify this?
Well, to be honest, I personally cannot say if they are the same, but that's why we have the power of group projects, right? So one person was the English editor, one person was the Bahasa Indonesia editor, and one person was the Bahasa Manado editor. Because, not all of my students are from Manado. So some of them are not familiar with Bahasa Manado, right? So maybe they can help with the English, or maybe they can help with the Indonesian. And so teamwork is really powerful here. And then I also looked at the English script. But if there are mistakes in the Bahasa Indonesia or Bahasa Manado, that's just
that's
how it is. That's part of the growing process. Things don't have to be perfect. They just have to be done. And so we did it. Is it perfect? Probably not, but that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when it's done and you see it, you read it, you find that, I think I have to improve in this. You can do it later. The improvement is.
Yeah, I mean, the thing. One thing about teaching, learning, and about life is if your goal is perfection, you're never going to learn, right? Like if my goal is to be perfect at Indonesian, I'm not going to be able to say anything, right? And so my goal in learning or doing something is not to be perfect at it. It's just to do it, right? Like if I say something in Indonesian and the grammar is horrible, but it ends up that I can ask my question. Maybe I ask like, where is the train station, or like, where is the restaurant, or can you help me, or how much is this, right? If I say it wrong, but they get my meaning, that's still successful, right? So for my students, it was about getting the meaning across. Can they get their story meaning across? And they were all able to do that. So I think it was very successful.
Okay. Even you did a research for this project, right? With the lecture in UNESA, hold on a second.
Yeah, so I shared this project with students and lecturers at UNESA. So the process is like, the first part is I share a lot of examples of picture books. So I would read picture books to the students and to the lecturers. I think a lot of people think, wow, picture books, it's for kids only. But my students, university students, enjoyed, and actually this picture is to lecturers and they enjoyed it too. So I think picture books is helpful in class because it's a short text and it has pictures. So it's easier to learn, it's more interesting. And then students create their own books and share it with the class. And because we were doing this virtually, they could decide if they wanted to do bilingual or not, just English. So actually, do I have time to share with you one example?
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'm going to switch to share screen. Oh, you've disabled sharing screen. Can you enable sharing screen?
Let me enable your share screen. Wait a minute.
Okay.
Okay, go on. Yeah. Okay, you still muted. Please unmute your audio.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to share one story created by my student. This is from UNESA, so you might recognize some Eastern Java influence because I asked them to incorporate their culture. Okay, don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. No spoilers.
I'm really familiar with this. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to read you the story. So, Madi and the Plow, written by Xiaoqi Yasmin Osadi. Once upon a time, on Madura Island, there lived a young man named Madi. He worked as a farmer in a field he owned. Every day, he worked in his field diligently. But one day, after he finished working on his field, he felt bored because he had nothing to do and nothing to play with. He only had his cows and his plowing wagon on the field. What to do, right? Suddenly, he thought of a brilliant idea. If I don't have anything to play with, then I'll make one myself, Madi said to himself. He started modifying the wagon. So Madi tried to make the wagon to be easily pulled by his cows and could be ridden by him. It says, pow, whoosh. Soon after, he finished modifying his wagon and proceeded to try riding the cow with it. After some preparations, he started making his cows run as fast as they could. Woohoo! He shouted. The nearby farmers and fellow villagers saw him riding the cow and were inspired to do the same. Eventually, Madi's self-created game became famous all over Madura Island and eventually gave birth to a race event culture called Harapan Sapi. The message of the story is be creative. Fun can be found not only from something which already exists, but also from things we create by ourselves.
Oh my God.
So I really love this story because it tells us something about culture, right? Indonesian culture.
Yeah.
And also you can see the drawings are very simple, but so fun, so colorful, right? These pictures are not, copy paste this cow many times, right? And have a square. I think it's a great example of how something simple can be a really amazing product. Even one page has one sentence. Like this is a full story, even though it's not long, it's only 8 pages, and each page just has one sentence. And if there are mistakes in English or in Indonesian, that's okay because we still enjoy the book.
Yeah, and it does make sense. The missions of making the reading feels fun. Yeah. You put the illustration there, and then you make the language very simple, understandable. That's what brings joy to the reader.
And I always told my students, when you're reading out loud, try to be like acting, like change your voices, make your voice different, like woohoo, he started having fun, instead of just like woohoo, he started having fun, right? Or like Madi found some cows and it was very fun, right? It has to be very like acting. But I think Indonesia, is an oral tradition, very like storytelling, right? So I think creating picture books was a great way to combine the oral tradition of Indonesia and to add like the Indonesian culture and make reading fun, right?
Okay. And what could you say about the results? Okay, let me put this into perspective. Okay, even in Indonesia, we have that kind of stereotype that Indonesian people are not really into reading. That's why our PISA level, our PISA positions, we are on the 63rd or 62nd position among 70 countries. That's why our score is low, because we think that people in Indonesia are not really into reading. Did you find the opposite after doing the research?
Yeah, I mean, my students, after this project, we found that through their survey responses, they were really interested in reading and writing and stories. And they even thought about, because they published their own stories, right? All of my students here, we printed the book. This is self-publishing, right? And so they got the experience of being able to publish their own book. So I hope in the future, students or Indonesians will be like, will understand that they can also write a story. I think there's a lot of issues with the system because, well, first of all, the culture of thinking reading equals textbooks, reading equals studying, that's very difficult to encourage students, right? If it's like, just read about like math or read about, you know, something boring. And then also, if you go to the store, because I love going to bookstores or libraries, right? But in Manado, there's only Gramedia, right? And so if you go to Gramedia, first of all, it's really expensive. And also, all of the books are like really thick English classics, right? And I think it's just much harder to read. Well, like, first of all, for my students, many of them grew up speaking Bahasa Manado. So they don't feel very comfortable even in Bahasa Indonesia, right? So they're not going to go into the store, and not many of them are going to pick up this huge book. It like even Pride and Prejudice in English is hard.
Pride and Prejudice,
So think about Pride and Prejudice in Indonesian, Bahasa Indonesia, right? Like, it took me a long time to read Pride and Prejudice in English. So I can't imagine reading Pride and Prejudice in Bahasa Indonesia for you, right? And that's your language. So I'm saying that the selection of books at Gramedia, I mean, nothing against Gramedia, but like in bookstores in Indonesia, there's no like simple, easy, accessible, fun, right? I think a lot of students have found like graphic novels or comics online, which is great because like comics and things with pictures is easier to understand and can be a good stepping stone to longer books, right?
Yeah. And I don't think that I will see local students who are not in the advanced level of English will go for To Kill a Mockingbird when they go to Gramedia.
I mean, for me, it's hard even to motivate myself to read classics because sometimes the culture is so different. Like Pride and Prejudice is in England a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I like that in this project, students write about something they know, like Karapan Sapi, that's familiar. They understand, right? It's not like something so new. And when I went to bookstores in Indonesia, I don't see many picture books also. So I tried to find some picture books for me to learn Indonesian, right? But there's not many, and then they're also expensive. So I hope in the future that there will be more access to books. But for now, at least having students create their own books, then that's free, you know? We can always create our own stories.
Those are the problems that I can highlight to you because as a matter of fact, in Indonesia, one book is weighted by 90 people because the ratio of the book availability compared to the number of people here is 0.09, meaning that one book is weighted by 90 people to be read. So if you want to read a book, you have to compete with the other 89 people. So the problem of access, the books here are not is not that accessible for the people, and it's expensive for sure. So
I think that's why this concept of like being able to borrow books for free at libraries is so powerful. That's how I grew up reading books, you know. I always borrowed them. I didn't buy them. So I hope that the students and teachers in Indonesia, I think, are realizing reading can be fun, and I think there is a lot of movement to create books that students can borrow, like you said, with your experiences at American Corner and things like that. I hope that will continue in the future too.
Yeah, hopefully, we're working on it. ERA is working on it, and then the government's working on it, and then we, the
and
American
Iana
Corner,
was
we do it.
very inspirational about these issues. That's actually where I learned a lot from my about the context of Indonesia. That's where I got the idea, learning about oral traditions. So I'm so grateful to Iera and Basa Bali for inspiring me to create this project.
Okay. Now, we are at the end of our session, but I have one little question for you. So I believe that you have had a ton of experience and then stories along the way, right? However, do you have any super amusing story that about the journey and that makes you feel amused every time you remember that story? Stick on your mind and for free.
Yeah, so just some other pictures that I shared, and then I'll go into my story. So, one way I dealt with this is actually a class of 70 students, but because I made them small groups and very active, I think it was less boring than if I just talked the whole time, right? Because I would have fallen asleep if I talked the whole time. So this is like how I managed such a large class, and I think students really benefit from that. And then I also was able to learn a lot about different cultures. So here, everyone in this picture is wearing or showing pictures from their home community. So I'm wearing a Wisconsin shirt. You can see other people are holding up stuff. One student is holding up the Papua bag, and some of my students from South Sulawesi or West Sulawesi, and it's great. So, okay, so my story is, I think it's funny. I don't know if you will think it's funny, but one time I bought these chocolate cookies and I forgot to put them in the fridge. So, it's Indonesia, and so if you leave anything sweet out, the ants will get to it. So the next day I came back and opened my backpack and the ants have started to steal my cookies. But I just bought them yesterday and I thought it's a waste to throw it away because it was from another province. I brought it back home. So then I was like, okay, I can't go back to that other province and I really want to try these cookies. So then I just put it in the in the freezer. And then the ants, froze. And then I just took it out later and then brushed off the ants and then just ate the cookies. And I think it's if there's any ants, it's extra protein.
Yeah, there's an extra ants here still, right?
Yeah, but I brushed most of them away. So. Have you ever done that, Austin?
Not really, but I did get rid of the ants one by one, right? When they get around the food, and then I just take it directly and then start to picking them up one by one, slowly, and then I make sure there's no ants inside, and then just eat it directly without even knowing that there's still many inside.
Wait, there were ants still inside?
Yeah, and I just threw up when I realized.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Yeah, the ants in Indonesia are so strong.
Yeah.
And actually that was another, when I said I learned to be more of an outdoors person, that was something that was very new to me before. Well, actually at the beginning, first 6 months, that really freaked me out. I had so many ants in my house and it really freaked me out. But then slowly, by the end, I was like, oh, it's just brush them off and eat it anyway.
Didn't you know magic chalk? Kapur ajaib?
Yeah, but it doesn't work if you forget it in your bag, right? Yeah. So, but that's okay. Okay, you had a last question for me that I wanted to answer.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to say to everyone that you consider important, but we haven't yet discussed? during our conversation.
Okay, yes, this is very important to me. So most people, when they meet me, don't think of me as American, right? But I want to share with everyone that actually America is in many ways similar to Indonesia, right? Indonesians, well, Americans can look like from all over the place, right? Many different faces.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with Indonesia, right? From like Aceh to Papua, there's so many different Indonesian faces, right? And so, like in America, I just want to share with people that Americans look like me too. So don't assume that I'm from China or Singapore just because I have an Asian face. I'm also American, and I was really proud to represent America when I was teaching in Indonesia. And I'm really proud to take what I've learned from my time in Indonesia and apply that to my life here in America. So I just want everyone to remember about the diversity of America, about the diversity of Indonesia, and that's something that is really my favorite part about both countries.
This is the best thing of having Miscellaneous with the Americans here, because we finally can show people here that Americans are not only those with pale skin and blonde hair. The Americans is diverse, just like who we are in Indonesia.
Yeah, exactly. And that was something so powerful about Indonesia. I'm so happy to have learned so much about all the diverse cultures, all the diverse languages, and I hope to be able to visit again in the future.
Yeah, fully. We're looking forward to it. And let us know if you finally made it to come to Indonesia and see what we can do together.
That would be great.
Okay, so thank you so much, Rachel. It's a great opportunity to have you here. We're so grateful for having you here. May you be blessed in this blissful months. It's currently Ramadan in Indonesia. We're going to celebrate Eid Mubarak. So hopefully,
Yeah, I
enjoy.
wanted to say happy Ramadan to everyone, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Have a nice day. And I know you're going to work after this. So have a nice day and hope all the best for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.